Now, Year 11s and Year 11 parents, you may well be thinking, oh no, not him again. But we did say we'd be back in touch as soon as we had any more information about what might be happening with this year's grades. First of all, I just want to say a massive well done to Year 11s. We've had really good engagement with continuing with the learning. So absolutely brilliant attendance at live lessons, and then some students doing the recorded versions of lessons, and more or less everyone sending in really high quality work to their teachers to be assessed and then receiving feedback on that. So just like I say, a massive well done, and thank you to the parents for encouraging that as much as possible. Last Friday, Ofqual and the Department for Education released a set of proposals for what things they're thinking about for awarding of GCSE grades this summer. This first sort of slide, just go through it briefly. The main proposals, and I'm going to say at this stage, no decisions have been made at all. That'll be a few weeks' time. But at this stage, just wanted to tell you what their thinking is and what questions they're asking, because the proposals are out there for consultation, and what they want to hear from is they want to hear from Year 11 students, they want to hear from the parents of Year 11 students, and they want to hear from teachers and school leaders. So obviously I'll be filling in that consultation, as will many staff, and I'd encourage you to do that if you're interested as well, if you feel strongly about it. Come on to that in a little bit. So the first proposal is that students will continue with their education for the whole of this academic year, and that's a great idea because they need to cover the content, etc. The second idea, students would be assessed during May and June, very similar to a normal year. Schools would then submit the grades by mid-June. Those would be under scrutiny with quality assurance by the exam boards throughout June. Then the next bit is results would be issued in July, maybe earlier than normal, and then students could appeal if they thought that school had got the grade wrong, etc., or they could appeal to the exam board if they don't think the school has followed the correct procedures, etc. So, try and explain a little bit more about those. The first proposal is that what we're actually going to be assessing is not a guess at what the student might have got if this had been a normal year, but it's the third bullet point there. What grade is the student demonstrating that they have the knowledge and skills for? And they've covered enough of the content to get that grade in a subject. So the Ofqual and the Department for Education are asking schools to work in teams of staff, etc., and gather the evidence behind that and assess what grade is their work at. And we'll come on to how they're sort of thinking about that. And I'll say, everything here is a proposal at the moment. This isn't what is happening. This is what they are putting out there to get feedback on. So the first sort of thing is the timing. So to make it fair on all students, they're saying that the assessment by the school should be in the period of May and June. However, from our perspective immediately, teachers will still be teaching all of their classes and have a full workload, and all the other year groups they're teaching as well as Year 11s. So actually, how that assessment happens is important for us and how much time that takes. So that may well become a lot longer period than May and June. So don't bank on that at this stage at all. But what they're saying is that would allow students to be taught for as long as possible to make up for any gaps in their education caused by national lockdowns, coronavirus, possibly being ill. That would enable us to cover as much as the curriculum as possible, so that, for example, they have covered all of the history spec if they're going on to take history at college, and similarly in maths, English, science, and all the subjects. So they've got that grounding in a subject to move forwards. And then there's questions in there about how much of the previous work of students should be used in that assessment as well. So should we be looking at work just from Year 11, or should we be looking at work throughout Years 9, Year 10 and Year 11, etc.? So those are genuine questions in the consultation that they're seeking people's opinions on. Then there's a section of questions in the consultation about the evidence and about how they're going to ask schools to actually determine these grades. So the first thing is they're very clear that it should be based upon the evidence we have. And they're saying to schools that guidance and training will be available from exam boards. Then there's a whole section about should the exam boards produce exam papers for this summer that would be sat within school and all the students' own work, and they'd be sat in May or June, very similar to a normal year. However, from our perspective immediately, it was looking at, so if they're producing exam papers to be sat in school and then teachers have to mark and moderate the exam papers, some of that is going to be extremely difficult given that they're asking perhaps schools to do the same job as the exam board would normally do as part of their evidence gathering. So how that would work and the time that would take while staff are having a full workload teaching all the other students and all the classes, how they could do this as well, we can't quite see that at the moment, but as I say, these are proposals. They're still considering that the non-exam assessment in subjects like art and graphics, where it's 100% looking at the work produced in the coursework, that would still be marked by staff. And then there's a section in there about how much we should use other performance evidence, such as mock results from the past and tests from year 11, year 10, year 9 possibly. And what do people think about having this consistent assessment window in May and June? So there's quite a few questions out there, and it's probably worth looking through the document to see what their thinking is, and if you feel strongly about it, getting your opinions heard. In terms of quality assurance, again, they're saying there's going to be support and training for school staff, so we don't have a clue what that looks like yet, from the exam boards to ensure that every school is doing this objectively and consistently. And until we have finer detail on that and actually see how they intend for us to do that and moderate it and samples, they're saying that within schools we'll have our own procedures for checking all of the accuracy and the quality of the data, and that we'd need to keep evidence and records of the evidence for each student. And again, the workload implications there for people who are still working full time and teaching everything else and still teaching year 11, how long that process could take, etc. Well, the devil's in the detail, and we'll find out more about that when all this consultation is over and then they tell us exactly what is happening and the way they do want us to do it. Then there's the proposal that exam boards would be checking on schools and ensuring that they're consistently applying it and sampling the evidence that we're using. So again, until we know more details on that, we can't really guess at how much of a sort of job that's going to be and how long that could possibly take. One of the reasons in there for their suggestion about releasing grades earlier, which is something that was there last year as well. They were sort of saying that they'd release grades earlier, and that didn't actually happen. They went back to the normal release time because of the procedures in place and all the hoo-ha. So at the moment they're saying in this consultation that by releasing grades earlier it would allow the appeals to happen. So for example, a student could appeal their grade and ask us to review the marking that we did of any papers that they've sat, and they could review all the evidence we've done and just double check ourselves. So students would be able to ask us to double check what we've done, and we'd have an appeals process, and that we would have somebody from outside the school, somebody competent and who knows the course, etc. We'd appoint them, and they wouldn't have been involved in the original assessment, but they'd look at the evidence with fresh eyes and see whether the grade that the school had given is a fair reflection of based upon that evidence, or if it's unfair. If, however, that's not successful, there would be a second sort of area where students could appeal to the exam board to say that they're not happy with the decision of the appeal to the school. So again, as I say, these are all proposals. How they're actually going to work, etc., we don't know. They are proposing that students won't be told their grades until they're released by the exam boards, so that the exam boards, once they've got the grades, can check on the school's procedures and scrutinise it. But they are saying that it would be earlier than normal at the moment. So what next? If you're interested, if you feel strongly about this, any of those proposals that I've gone through, or I'd suggest you read the proposal document and have a look at what it says for itself. Rather than just my opinions or our interpretation of it. And then if you want to engage in that, you can do so online by following the link. But more importantly, this is actually about our year 11 students, you, and This is about 11 years of your education and getting the grades that you deserve. Meaningful grades based upon your efforts, your ability, your aptitude in all these subjects. What I'd most encourage you to do is, trying to draw around it with my finger, work hard, do what you've been doing, attend all your live lessons, complete the work, stay really engaged during this period when you can't have face-to-face contact with your teachers. Work hard, do your best, and the system needs to work for you so that you get the grades that you deserve. What can you do at the moment? You can work hard and do your best. We can all give our opinions on the consultation. That closes on January the 29th. After that, they'll look at all the evidence at the Department for Education working with Ofqual. They'll make their decisions and then they will issue the system for how it's going to work this year. So if you want to be heard, engage in the consultation. However, working hard, staying engaged, keep working like you have been all the way through school. That's what you need to do now. So again, we'll be back in touch with you as soon as we know more. Good luck and thank you for watching.